say Showore and the people who are organizing this kind of protests, right? They should stop calling it a protest. We are shutting down tomorrow. Stop calling it that. Start calling it expression of feelings. How do you feel? Nigerians, how do you feel? Oh, we've been power. You know what? Meet us at Ikeja under bridge tomorrow so that we can tell the politicians and the government that it's been power. We must make them give us our rights. Solidarity. It's like an on auto. Everywhere you go, solidarity. Then they go back home. If I was a politician in that contraption, I would look at it as unserious people here. So call it a day of expression of feelings. Okay, even a protest should be, and I do not want to put all of that on the organizers. The organizers called out. So the leader got arrested. He is still under detention as we speak. So what would you do? If you call out Nigerians who said they are hungry, they are starving, to come out and let us think on this government, and now only 15, 20 people come out for your area. I mean, like, anyway. So that was that around the Lagos. But back in Abuja, remember that Kolu said he has reached an agreement with the labor leaders, right? And he's going to be sending the bill or something, minimum wage, to the National Assembly for them to pass soon, right? The problem now is that now 62,000 naira Tinubu they talk about. And that is what the Labour said they will reject. But because Ajero's return ticket, it be lesson tonight or tomorrow. So therefore, they cannot go on strike right now. But Tinubu said he allowed them to go on strike, he would have arrested them or harassed them, but he didn't. So if Tinubu's proposal is 62,000 naira, 60K plus the urgent 2K, well, we would have to actually wait for Ajero then, Abi. So they called Tinubu after that broadcast. Bro Bernard, they said it's Bro Bernard. So they called Tinubu to come and do parade. Listen to me, Tinubu is an old guy. He's older than the age he wants you to believe. He's a sick man. He's mentally sick. He's got dementia. He's got, what is that thing called? Catheter. Maybe the person, they shit himself like, you know, you couldn't really control your bowel per se. So he wear diapers. You see all of this, right? They are the signs to show that Tinubu doesn't belong in the asshole rock if it wasn't the old people's zone. It belonged into a place in Badagry, next to the border, you know, next to that place they call the border of no return. There is a place there for old people where Tinubu was supposed to be practicing, pretending to be president of somewhere. But he's there inside the asshole rock. So he will take all of the bands by the special grace of God. And it doesn't matter how you feel. Okay? You see the disgrace that Nigeria has become today, including the slow mentality of a majority of the impoverished Nigerians today. Tinubu is a reflection of that. It started with Bokwari, a deluded, demented as well, by the way, lifeless Megad. And you could see what Nigeria became. Those around them, they could manipulate these sick old men for their own advantage, to their own advantage. Give me a sec. Now they could do that. And because these guys just want to appear to say, I am the president. Am I still president? Yeah, you are still president. They are like infamy. They are like infirm. They are like mentally sick, like slow. and they are easily manipulated. And that's exactly what is reflecting in Nigeria, where everyone just do whatever they like. All right? It happened under Boko Haram. You have seen the results. Boko Haram fell. They wanted to blackmail us. They said we should not laugh. We should not talk if we want to grow old. But go and see some of these over 60,000 women and children, civilians slaughtered under Boko Haram. Majority of those killed, they were women and children. Okay? And they were young. When I say children, at least you know that's not old, Rabi. These were people who did not laugh at Boko Haram, who did not say anything about Boko Haram. They were killed after all because of Boko Haram's policy. The ones that pardons terrorists and jail activists. So they called Tinubu to come and do parade, Democracy Day parade. I don't know. Maybe not the ganja, maybe not the drug. I have no idea. Some said it's because of the agbada. Or when called Lulule, even me shout, Jesus.
Resume of the reviewing officer. The special guest of honor and reviewing officer for today's historic occasion, His Excellency President Ashwaji. Resume of the reviewing officer. The special guest of honor and reviewing officer for today's historic occasion, His Excellency. Resume of the reviewing officer.
Sorry, oh. Sorry, oh. Sorry, oh.
That was Kolu. And whatever happened, I sort of blame those behind him. He's an old guy. Remember the other day I told you what is wrong if they let him sit on a wheelchair. He's an old guy, people of his age, with some of the medical problems that, medical conditions like that. Number one, he shouldn't be president, but he is. Have you seen Joe Biden? That one is worse. But you know the difference between those around Joe Biden and those around Tinubu is that, you see, those around Joe Biden, they are Americans. All right? You see, those around Tinubu, they are chancers, opportunists who pretend to be Nigerians. Because in real sense, there is no real Nigerian anywhere. So those around Joe Biden, no matter how much you kind of have any of their shortcomings, okay, you will still see that America is still kind of being run. It may not be to your own will, like if you are like a Republican or I'm just saying, I'm not trying to defend Joey. I'm saying those around there, those around Joe Biden, right? They are still pro-America, put it that way. You see those around Tinubu, they are praise singers, ass lickers, in suits and barbariga. Even if Tinubu shit on his body, they will tell you, oh, it was just a little bit of abdominal stress. It's nothing new. They will even go and Google and look for any leader in the world with a shit in body. You see, Nicaragua president in 1921, he did shit for body. This is how horrible these guys are. And there is no bottom barrel hole that these guys will not think Nigeria, as long as he gives them any crumbs. Now you will, now your own body go tell. All right? So don't let anybody pity party or push you into emotional blackmail, okay? Laugh, 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 talk on. No be you put Kolu in that condition. No be you talk, say, after the life of a drug abuse, he is still being kind of popped up on steroids to make him appear sharp. And in most cases, he will end up appearing drowsy. 70 years old man. I thought they would put him on a horse, but they didn't. Eventually, right, he did not break any bone. And if he did break any bone, they won't tell us. Okay? But they still popped him up and they still pop him onto that truck, right? To do the parade, to complete the shame. As he was waving at the workers, I believe, or waving at the people, they were shouting minimum. Well, listen. Minimum wage. We want minimum wage. We want minimum. Right. So that is my report from Nigeria today or this morning. There are others that are still coming later. So let me ask you this, right? You know, usually brunch time with Mayegun is into two phases, right? I mean, three, in fact, three phases. The first one is a bit of a snippet into what is going on. Then the next one is going to be us reading from our white malice, the neocolonization of Africa during the time of independence movements. We have heard about Nkrumah. We have known about Mobutu Sese Seko. We have known about Patrice Lumumba. We have known about so many of these African-American pro-freedom, guys who were actually working for the CIA. So the third part is usually when we take calls. Now, because today is your democracy or demonstration of grace day, I don't know if you have a lot to say today, right? So do you want me to just go straight and kind of read a chapter from our white malice, then use the rest of the afternoon to take calls, or you will just rather go into calls straight away and we can start having that chat as long as possible? Which one would you prefer? You tell me. But listen to this. Goodluck Egbere Jolantan was also speaking at a dinner organized to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the democracy in Nigeria. Could you please share?
Of our democracy. In fact, Kingibe mentioned the key actors, including late Abiola's wife, Kodirat, and others. And of course, he was the elected vice president of the country. He was the vice president of MKO Abiola. So that's an area he knows more than me. So I didn't want to bore your ears by mentioning names again. But we also remember the famous letter signed by 18 northern elders and delivered by Chief Solomon La, Alhaji Abubakar Remi, Malam Adamu Siroma, Ahmed Joda, and Chief Sunday Awini to General Sani Abacha demanding the return of Nigeria to democratic rule. A military dictator sitting, and some bloody civilians moved in with a letter saying, please, we need democracy. That's another way of saying, please get out, we want to take over from you. For the military, that is treason. So some people entered and confronted the lion, also to urge him to come up with a democratic setting. The full signatories to that letter were Chief Solomon La, Alhaji Adamu Siroma, Alhaji Lawal Kaita, Alhaji Abubakar Remi.
Jonah, keep your eulogies to yourself. So I think we are going to spend another 40 minutes while we quickly read a chapter from the White Malice. For those who have been following anyway, okay? And if you have not been following, I think you should. And if you also have the book yourself, and if you have read the book, that's great. Okay, we are still going to take calls. But before we take calls, I am going to read through, have breaks, and then finally, once I get to so I'm going to be reading about 12 pages of, that's from chapter 10. That's going to be like pages 121 to pages 133. So let's get down to it quickly, and then you can get ready, okay, to call in. And then you can kind of add your own contribution at the end if you want to. Or if you really have to go and do something else, great. You can even listen to this like you are listening to a podcast, a radio podcast. So I'm going to read. And yeah, so if you are just joining us as well, please share this, okay? And thank you very much. So chapter 10 of the White Malice, the CIA and the neo-colonization of Africa. Thank you. So Ambassador Borden. Throughout the round table, a phalanx of journalists from all over the world sat at the back of the room, writing reports to send home. The American magazine Time described the conference as a mad melange of inflammatory speeches, door-slamming walkouts, rival press conferences, and angry communiques. It was headline news, but behind the headlines was another story, which was kept very quiet. Negotiation about the future of the Congo between Belgium and the USA. At their center was a pouchy, owlish, 6'1" American, William Bill Armistead. Mohale Borden Jr., who had flown to Brussels in early September 1959 as the new US ambassador to Belgium and the Belgian Congo. Borden, I'm gonna put this up here so that you can see my face. And then I can put my other one on, which is to also see my reading. Let's do it that way. Sorry about that. So Borden, here to the Vanderbilt fortune, was a wealthy New Yorker and patron of the arts. He had made substantial contribution to the Republican Party in the 1956 presidential campaign, hoping to be rewarded with the role of an American ambassador in France. Instead, he was offered Belgium, which he declined. He hankered for the sophistication of diplomatic life in Paris. But when it became clear that France was not in the cards, he was ready to compromise. And when he was offered Belgium and his African colony were going through a period of change of great importance to the US. And Belgium, unlike France, had a monarchy which had a special appeal for Borden, who relished opulence. He knew that the American ambassador would be expected to participate in many lavish royal events. Borden and his wife, Peggy, resolved to make a success of the appointment. They took his Cadillac to Brussels, along with some favorite paintings, the best butler he had ever had, and an excellent French chef. Keen to establish his skill as a wine connoisseur, he also obtained a superb cellar of Bordeaux wines, including 50 cases of irreplaceable Chateau Cheval Blanc, 1947, which were conveyed to the embassy from Bonn in 2 truckloads. Wine from New York was added to the cellar. This collection of vintage wines, he wrote, with considerable satisfaction, some years later made my reputation. Borden wrote a thick memoir in his later years, Peggy and I, A Life Too Busy for a Dull Moment. In it, he recorded a life of luxury, expensive meals, and the purchase of art and influence. His granddaughter, Wendy Borden, who also wrote a memoir, Dead End Gene Pool, which was a caustic account of growing up with William and Peggy Borden in their Fifth Avenue apartments, cared for by a chain smoking nanny. Her father, their eldest son, killed himself when she was 6 after her grandparents went to Brussels. In a memoir, Wendy Borden portrays her grandfather as a casual anti-Semite and a serious alcoholic. William and Peggy Borden were rarely seen without an alcoholic drink and spent several weeks in a clinic every year to dry out. Once, while visiting Paris, when he had just seen the latest model Mercedes-Benz, William called his private secretary in New York to instruct her to order 5 of them, one to be delivered in a few hours to him in Paris. Dead End Gene Pool gives the impression that Borden was superficial and dull-witted. But in fact, he appears to have been astutely intelligent as well as ruthless. His professional background was as an aviation analyst, and during World War II, he was U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Air. In a debate in the British House of Commons towards the end of the war, he was described as one of the greatest experts on these subjects in the world. He was intensely interested in national defense and took the credit for convincing President Truman to go ahead with America's deployment of the hugely destructive hydrogen bomb over Robert Oppenheimer's vigorous objections. The pride he felt in his involvement is manifest in Peggy and I, where the only illustration in color is that of the fireball of the world's first thermonuclear explosion in Eniwetok Proving Grounds, which is in November 1st, 1952. Nicholson Baker, who has written with perspicacity on the horror of war, has described Borden as a mass destructionist. He notes that Borden was the least well-known of the U.S. Air Force's 3 most influential proponents of infectious warfare, united in a belief that weaponized disease was the way to win the war with the communists. Borden took tours of the U.S. Army's Special Operations Division, based at Fort Detrick, 50 miles from Washington in the Maryland town of Frederick, which, shrouded in secrecy, was the center of the U.S. biological weapons program. Borden, opposed to any sort of retaliation-only restriction on the use of biological weapons, asked in November 1951, what is being done about the policy of using biological weapons for other than retaliatory purposes? In 1957, he was appointed a public trustee of the Pentagon's Institute for Defense Analysis, a weapons research think tank, which he later described as one of the top priorities of my life. He was elected chairman of the Institute in May 1959. Borden's business interests were wide-ranging. He founded the Wall Street investment company that bears his name, and at various times was the director of Lockheed Aircraft Corporation, the CBS television network, Hanover Bank, and Allied Chemical, as well as other major companies. He was also a director of American Metal Climax, a mining company with extensive holdings in Central Africa. It was a large shareholder in Rhodesian Selection Trusts, which was closely linked to the Belgian Congo and obtained much of its energy from the Congo's hydroelectric sources. Baldwin saw himself as a central figure in the mining world of Katanga and Belgium.